Hey, muy buenas noches to everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. And before I start off, again, muchas gracias to all for everything you guys expressed towards me. Most of all for you guys' prayers and your time to do so. Gracias. Now to get into the topic today. Today I wanna expand a little bit more on what I talked about the last recording. Which was we all know what we signed up for, and basically seen a lot of comments how we should man up to what comes, and yeah, I can see their point of view. Once you're there, you got no options but to follow suit. You're there already, and if you have that type of loyalty, and when it came down to yourself, then checking in and going the other route ain't an option, which was in my case. But for this, I wanted to touch on my personal, you know, growing ups. Now, as you guys know, I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from the first generation, so I didn't have those means, that I had older homeboys to actually tell me how the rodeo was, of all that life. To me, I was learning as I was going, and it was all behind on the streets. It was game banging, going to party, meeting some girls, drinking, getting high. Then once all that got out the way, let's go represent the neighborhood. It was always what I lived for on the streets. To be sincere, I had a lot of anger, when it came down to my enemigas, and it was all behind that day, like I said, I became a sureño more than anything over them taking out, Luisillo or Speedy, and me being there, and it just sparked something in me that it just it was hard, to go insist with it. It was just basically I was doing things as I was going, but like I stated, I didn't have that older homie to give me some clutch on how things were when it came going. I was learning. I learned when we went to juvenile hall how things were, and even though when I went to YA, it was still a learning process, and it was never about, we followed a program, but it was you were there because you had them well set between your legs, and you were able to hold your ground. It was always what you could do. It was never about what another man inputted on you doing, And I remember in 1996 when I caught my case, it was to be sincere, I was so lost. It was nothing, To me, I ain't felt anything. As I've told a little bit on how I got arrested, how I disrespected one of my amiga's mom, and till these days, she's a beautiful person, And in county, it was the same thing, and it was mainly you don't like something, you go ahead and run up in his cell and put tips on him, and that's how you got things squared off in my county. And to me, it was an eye opener, when I hit San Quentin. It was the only thing I used to hear from the older homies, from East LA, from San Diego, wherever, was like always, hey, homie, slow down, You hit other spots where programas already said, and you still being scrappy the way you are here is you're gonna mess up your whole stay in prison, you know. And to be sincere, I couldn't comprehend that, you know. To me, it was hard to understand when they were coming from, you know. And again, I was lucky, blessed, or maybe even cursed by having Raul as my celly, and because I got introduced to a whole different world, you know. I knew that how our structure was already set, you know, which was, you know, a pili was a pili, and we were to sit down and respect that, you know. So once I learned that Raul was who he was, I had no option but to listen to him, you know. And it was a whole new world, you know. In my case, I couldn't, you know. I remember going in. Ain't no race was gonna touch our gente, you know. And like I told before, you know, there was a homie from Oregon that he used to have this. He despised brothers, you know, and he was constantly disrespecting, and they had already, you know, southsiding him a couple times, and you know, in a lot of different ways, and he didn't want to learn. So I remember when we were out in the upper yard in West Block, we were literally what, maybe 15 feet away from him, and when the brother took off on him and started stomping him in, you know, and my first reaction was to take flight, you know. And when Raul grabbed me and said, "Nah, chales, al suelo, güey, you're not to get in." We told him, we warned him, and he didn't want to listen. He ain't going to take camaradas with him, you know, just let him deal with his own stuff. It was hard for me to understand that, you know. And, but again, I knew who Raul was, and I couldn't question it, you know. And that was something I had to fight with myself a lot, you know, which was they started taking the part as a juvenile that I grew up in, you know, which was, you know, we're our own man, and we represent ourselves, because they start taking that from you. If you guys didn't know, you know, once you hit the system, it's just you get to a yard, it's by rules and regulations and do's and can't do's, and all this is they start breaking that away, you know. We start being molded into a piece in their chess game, you know. No. And that's exactly what happened with me, you know. I ended up being on the road wing, and started getting concentrating that and that side of me into wanting to be in the mix and representing, you know. And it was difficult, you know, to say the least, because there was numerous of times where I knew a lot of camaradas were in the wrong, and the action I wanted to take was basically just grab a piece and deal with the problem on the spot, you know. And I couldn't do that. A lot of the times, as you guys know, with Crook and Lalo, it was like no hands on, you can't do nothing. Buck up and take it. And those were the things that I didn't understand, you know. As things kept on falling, I was learning, you know. And now I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I would have never done my crime, or I'm not blaming nobody of anything I done in my life but myself. But this is for all the young ones on the streets, you know. I know different area, different colors, right? But you know, I know down south, camaradas get out from doing time, and instead of really lacing up younger homies to the point where, hey, once you're in, it's not like this. Slow your roll, you know. Yeah, if they come up and hit you up, ooh, then you know, buck up and represent where you're at, you know. But other than that, man, don't look for that glory in prison. There's nothing there. You know, for me it was a lot of time sitting down. You know, I want to start touching on the times that I took it, because there was a lot of times where, I was directed to grab the pilot on a Ramfla in spots when and other people weren't taking it, and we got the bat and a death stick, and it's just a lot of that, a lot of you representing somebody that at the end of the day they don't care not one ounce for you, nothing, and I could sit here and tell you, I was a good son, I was a good this, I was never good, whatever I have since I stepped back is the only time I've tried to do something positive, but other than that, man, I neglected my jefita, I neglected my kids that I have in California. I put them through a lot of suffering, man, and is it worth it? Did I know what I was getting into? Nah, I didn't, And as I was going, I was learning and basically blending them with what had to be done, But for those out there thinking that, you're out there and you go game bang and then come back to your neighborhood, get high, party, meet a girl, and does the carnalismo or friendship you're gonna find in prison? There is none of that, man. Do know you're gonna get in. If you want to get drunk, you're gonna mind somebody that's gonna dictate where you could do it. You know, if you feel sick and don't want to come out to day room or to yard, you don't even have that option. 'Cause it's mandatory. And I understand all those angles. That we to be out there and basically be camponeros. Be out there ready for war. And but to me, it never made sense. Someone's had fevers, been sick. Why would you want him out there? He's just gonna get hurt. But pa' que haga bulto. And now it just became, in my eyes, ridiculous. It's you do as I say or you're through. Your family comes up often. You're gonna do as I say or you're through. You're gonna make them. Not only did you neglect your family, not minding what they have told you to maintain, to do good, but you're gonna you're gonna use and abuse them too. I mean, does that make sense? A strange man telling you how you gotta treat your family and what you're gonna make your family do. I was there. I was a youngster. I remember when I first got my case. I remember the day before I got busted. You know, I uh, I got home and I had gotten stomped by like 3, 4 norteños. I don't recall. I just remember that I was walking up towards the house and I just heard, pinchy, you guys know how to disrespect us. And they cracked me in the back with something. And when I tried to turn around, they cracked me with something and I was gone. So they stopped me in. And long story short, I ended up in the hospital. And the minute I got out the hospital, it was go time. It was, hunting season. Dispense I say it like that, but that's exactly where our mind is at when we're out there. So I went out there and nada for a few days. And I remember coming home the day before I got busted. And my older brother, he was actually he was there waiting for me at the stairs, and he told me like, "Hey, fool, come on, let's go eat something." So we went, and he told me in color and word by word how it was gonna be when I got busted. When it came to my son and his mom and everything that was gonna happen, and you know, that's why I really believe in how sound people say, when they say take it from this pendejo and learn from my mistakes, man. Those are facts. If everybody could just wise up and really take a little bit from everybody to learn from what they have gone, there wouldn't be as much of this as there is now, or it wouldn't have extended to the extent that it is now, because man, it just in my case it was a trip. I used to blame that when I was busted, it was like, ya estoy aquí, tengo que seguirle para adelante. But now my stupidity went even further. I got out and I came to Mexico and I joined a file, refile over here, new program, new dictations, new rules of the game, and I still was there to the point where I offer a family member, and let's just say, well, in the next story, I will get to that. I want to continue on my story, is why I'm putting this out there. Just basically, instead of people jumping on the comment saying, you know what you signed up for, don't say that, man. I didn't know. Now I'm not whining about it. I went through it. I did my prison term. I did what I had to do on the streets for the Peelies, and none of that was an issue. But instead of saying that to the people that are out there, man, give them some clecha. Really give them some clecha. I seen some vato that said it, and he went off by saying, he basically ended up saying that it's just a dirty thing that's happening now. Exactly. Don't start off with, what you're signed up for. Just say, you know, man, I did my thing, is it? But give the youngsters advice, man. All the people always man say, raza this, raza that, raza that. But you as raza, have you taken a second to actually give a little bit of knowledge to raza? And again, not on here to preach. I'm no angel. I'm far from an angel. I made peace with God. In my case is, you know, Jesucristo. But even though, just because I made peace with it, that's a selfish thing. That's a personal thing. I don't plan on getting any type of different treatment when I go just because of it. I know where I'm headed. I know what I've done in life. And I'm at peace with that. You know, the truth of things is, you get out of prison, and what? You get out with a title, and youngsters looking up to you because you went and did a term, and instead of schooling youngsters, you misguide them. And then once falls out, or the politic gets them, or whatever, then quick to judge, oh, he was a weenie. Come on, man. But to each their own. Just to the people to the young ones that haven't been to prison, man, do know it is nothing how you think or imagine it to be. You ain't gonna be you no more. Period. You're gonna be able to jump on the cuerno with the girl or your family, and yeah, you could play the part, but the facts are, when you hang up the phone or you get out of visiting, you're to follow suit and follow another man's program. Period. And if you don't, nothing you done is gonna stop them from sending you on your way to wherever. So be wise, man. Love your loved ones. Love yourself most of all, Because I mean, any camarada, any raza for that, that's doing time right now that tells you, oh, I love myself and I respect myself and I value myself, that's BS. If you did, you wouldn't allow someone else to do with you as they please, and you just stay quiet and follow suit. Those are facts. So love yourself, love your loved ones, and I disculpen that this ain't a story. This is just expanding my message a little more. Be smart, man. I suffered for 25 years putting up. You know, I took being someone's not soldado, not guerrillero, sureño, someone's chump. I did as I was told. Be smart, man. There ain't nothing in that. Love your hood, love your homies, but most of all, think of getting out the ghetto, man. Getting out of that lifestyle. You know, doing something, a family, instead of being in a jail cell smelling other vatos, listening to other vatos, when to wake up, when to go to sleep, when it's time for you to work out, when you can stay in your cell, when you can't, when it's time for you to hoop bang or if you get stabbed, whatever, you to keep your mouth shut and take it inside a cell like a man and not say nothing. Or when you're in the shoe, going through something. I remember the first time I went through cancer, I couldn't even stop an MTA and be like, hey, I'm going through this. Nah, I had to first go ask another individual, seeing if I got that okay to get out the cell so that everybody feels they have, everybody's telling or doing something. There's no trust there. You could say, we're doing this causa, there's no trust there. Everybody distrusts everybody because everything's considered snitching. So I had to ask permission and get the okay for me to get it pulled out and verify I was wrong. I mean, there's nothing in jail, man. There is nothing more rewarding than being able to actually, see your jefita, a family member, and really be like, hey, you know what, mom? I love you and I disculpen, or like this time my jefita came and me going out to eat with her and just laughing and joking and not being worried about all that extra stuff, you put them through. Time flies, man, and we're on borrowed time. So treasure those you love, and they really love you back. With this said, muy buenas noches y ay disculpen, I'm here rambling on. I send my love, my respect to everybody. Please stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones. Gracias y buenas noches.